is truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live Monday. What is today? December 9th, 2019. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. It is crazy busy. Today's news day. And I've just been trying to keep up while working on a separate story. So forgive me if I don't get everything. But we will try and get everything. Hold on 1 second. Make sure this is working. Blah, 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 blah. All right. So, where do you start? Bombshell story this morning. Surprisingly, out of the Washington Post. Out of the Washington Post, of all places. That shows essentially what we've kind of already known. That the war in Afghanistan has been one lie after another, after another, after another. A wasteful lie that kind of, in a way, in a large way, kind of validates journalists like myself, Aaron Maté, Ben Norton, Max Blumenthal, Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, Abby Martin, Rania Khalek, the list goes on, who, for a living, don't believe what the government tells us about war and foreign intervention, among other things that the government tells us. For a living, are constantly lambasted and attacked as conspiracy theorists for saying, no, we're not just going to believe the claims that the Pentagon and the CIA and the FBI and Homeland Security put out there. We are the ones that are ostracized as the kooks and, not the journalists. But this Afghanistan war report, and I read the whole thing, it is a long, long article. I am not going to read the full article to you if you have not seen it. It might be from the Washington Post, which I usually am happy to attack. But in this case, it's damn good investigative reporting. Credit where credit is due to the Washington Post on this one. So we're going to go into this heavily because, frankly, after you read this report, which is barely getting any attention, at least on CNN and MSNBC, which is wall-to-wall Ukraine, honestly, I don't ever want to hear how are we going to pay for it again after you read this report. So we're going to lead with that. There's actually quite a lot of news on Mayor Pee Wee Herman. Pete Buttigieg. It seems like on this busy day where the Afghanistan report came out, the Inspector General came out with a report basically showing that we already knew that the Russia investigation was based on the discredited Steele dossier. We knew that. Now the Inspector General came out saying that the original FISA warrant for Carter Page was based on a whole lot of incorrect information, not thorough vetting by the FBI. So on the same day that the Afghanistan report comes out, FISA stuff is coming out, Pete Buttigieg very quietly, but it's out there, decided to open up his fundraisers to the press, although the press is not, he's not telling the press yet where those fundraisers are going to be. He has 3 big, lavish fundraisers scheduled for this week in Manhattan. I'm on Long Island right now, but he has 3 lavish fundraisers scheduled for Manhattan. We don't know where they're going to be. We're trying to figure out. The Democratic Socialists of America trying to figure out where they're going to be. I believe the Sunrise Movement trying to figure out where they're going to be. I'm trying to figure out. Jen's trying to figure out. If we figure it out, hopefully I'll be able to go there. I don't think I'm going to get into the fundraiser, but at least covering what the protests are outside the fundraiser. So he released that, I think, in hopes that because the news is so busy today, you have the impeachment hearing, the Afghanistan war story, the FISA warrant story, that it wouldn't get a lot of attention. Well, we're going to give it some attention. Also, miraculously, on this same day, McKinsey, the vulture consultant group that consults for brutal dictators around the world, corporate criminals, all that Pete Buttigieg consulted from 2007 to 2010, has given Pete permission. It's given Pete permission to list the clients he represented. I don't think they've given permission for him to give some details about the work he did for those clients, but they've given permission for him to release the list of clients. So we're going to get into that. So before we go any further, you know the drill, folks. We need you. T-minus 24 hours. Tomorrow, YouTube starts its new, what are they calling it? Era of commercial viability. Tomorrow, December 10th, is when YouTube's new terms of service debut. We're already getting screwed by YouTube. Dare I say, fucked by YouTube. Swear jar. This is a super chat. Help us out, since I just demonetized us. We're already getting really screwed by YouTube. But tomorrow, they're introducing this fakakta, if you're not deemed commercially viable by YouTube, whatever that means. It's so vague, they could basically decide anybody's not commercially viable, even outlets that are commercially viable. If you're not commercially viable to YouTube, you're gonna go. They're purging channels. So we're hoping this channel does not get purged. We're hoping our friends in independent media that are progressive and truly alternative journalists are not purged either, but just in case, definitely one of the things on that checklist we're really pushing. Follow us on Twitch. We are live right now on Twitch. We're also live on Periscope. Follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/statuscoup. That's twitch.tv/statuscoup. Makes a big difference. Even if you're not on Twitch, just sign up. Follow us. Yes, I know Amazon owns it. For right now, it's our best bet. It's not getting suppressed like YouTube. And so far, we've been growing our following at Twitch. So definitely sign up at Twitch. For this live stream right now, press the like button. We got 200 of you watching. 96 of you have pressed that like button. So we need 100 more. 100 people to press that like button. It makes a big difference in getting the views up. More people that don't see the live stream in their feed end up seeing it with the likes going up. Also, we are trying to grow our text alert system to get around this YouTube suppression, particularly the delayed notifications that are coming from YouTube. So definitely text 474747 and then write Coup, and that will get you joined up on our text alert system. You know the drill. Follow us at Status Coup, and you could go to our brand new website. We are tweaking it on the go, so you could go to statuscoup.com. We've made some changes already, and enter your email at statuscoup.com, and we'll talk about membership in a little bit. Right now we're at 747. We want to grow that number lickety-split. So, the Afghanistan report that came out this morning from the Washington Post, and we like criticizing the Post, so I don't mind giving them credit. Apparently they fought for 3 years in court through the Freedom of Information Act, which Jen and I have been fighting for a different story, to get information released. So far, we haven't been successful in that. But the Washington Post has basically... How many more lawyers does the Washington Post have than us, Jen? Probably, I'd say, 150 additional lawyers. And probably a budget of probably hundreds of millions of dollars more than us. So Washington Post was successful in this case. But the Washington Post fought to get this information out for several years. And finally, they were able to gain access to this information. And the information basically shows that internally, the government, the Pentagon, and other agencies did an internal review of the Afghanistan war to essentially find out lessons learned, as they call it. And the lessons learned, ideally, they were going to learn these lessons so that they didn't make these same mistakes they made in Afghanistan in other countries that we illegally invade. So we've been in Afghanistan now, 2021 will be 20 years. So we're going on 19 years. Basically, we're going on 2 decades. So the top line of this report, and let me just dump it right into Super Chat. Again, this is a Super Chat. If you're feeling super, let us know. It makes a big difference. Thank you, Kelly Elaine, the $2 to get us started off today. So the report started off by basically saying that I'm not reading the whole report. It's really, really long, but I do have some major points. Saying a confidential trove of government documents obtained by the Post reveals that senior U.S. officials failed to tell the truth about the war in Afghanistan throughout the 18-year campaign, making rosy pronouncements they knew to be false and hiding unmistakable evidence the war had been unwinnable. The documents were generated by a federal project examining the root failures of the longest armed conflict in U.S. history. They include more than 2,000 pages of previously unpublished notes of interviews with people who played a direct role in the war, from generals and diplomats to aid workers and Afghan officials. The U.S. government tried to shield the identities of the vast majority of those interviewed for the project and conceal nearly all of their remarks. The Post won release of the documents under the Freedom of Information Act after a 3-year legal battle. In the interviews, more than 400 insiders offered unrestrained criticism of what went wrong in Afghanistan and how the United States became mired in nearly 2 decades of warfare. Quote, "We were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing." Douglas Lute, 3-star Army general who served under Bush and Obama, said in this internal review that Washington Post got a hold of. "What are we trying to do here? We didn't have the foggiest notion of what we were undertaking. If the American people knew the magnitude of this dysfunction, 2,400 lives lost." He blamed the deaths on U.S. military personnel, the deaths of U.S. military personnel on bureaucratic breakdowns among Congress, the Pentagon, and the State Department. Since 2001, more than 775,000 U.S. troops have deployed to Afghanistan, many repeatedly. Of those 2,300 that died, and 20,589 were wounded in action. So, let me show you a couple parts that I just took out of this. Several of those interviewed described explicit and sustained efforts by the U.S. government to deliberately mislead the public. They said it was common at military headquarters in Kabul, Afghanistan, and at the White House to distort statistics to make it appear that the U.S. was winning the war when that was not the case. Every data point was altered to present the best picture possible. Bob Crowley, an Army colonel who served as a senior counterinsurgency advisor to U.S. military commanders in 2013 and 2014, told government interviewers, quote, "Surveys, for instance, were totally unreliable, but reinforced that everything we were doing was right, and we became self-licking ice cream cone." John Sopko, the head of the federal agency that conducted these interviews, acknowledged to the Post that the documents show the American people have constantly been lied to. Since 2001, the Defense Department, State Department, and U.S. Agency for International Development have spent or appropriated between $934 billion and $978 billion on Afghanistan. Let's just round that to $1 trillion, okay? $1 trillion spent in Afghanistan. Those figures do not include money spent by other agencies such as the CIA and the Department of Veteran Affairs, which is responsible for medical care for wounded vets. And what do we get for this $1 trillion effort? Was it worth $1 trillion? Jeffrey Eggers, a retired Navy SEAL and White House staffer for Bush and Obama, told government interviewers. He added, after the killing of bin Laden, I said that Osama was probably laughing in his watery grave, considering how much we have spent in Afghanistan. So, here you have, literally, for the majority of the Afghanistan war under Bush, Obama, now Trump, you literally have people having no idea what exactly we are at war for. I mean, this passage I found even more striking. Yet the interview shows that as the war dragged on and the goals and mission kept changing and a lack of faith in the U.S. strategy took root inside the Pentagon, the White House, and the State Department. Fundamental disagreements went unresolved. Some officials wanted to use the war to turn Afghanistan into democracy, because we love turning other countries into democracies. Others wanted to transform Afghan culture and elevate women's rights. Still others wanted to reshape the regional balance of power among Pakistan, India, Iran, and Russia. Quote, with the AFPAC strategy, there was a present under the Christmas tree for everyone, an unidentified U.S. official told government interviewers in 2015. By the time you were finished, you had so many priorities and aspirations, it was like no strategy at all. What's incredible here, we went into Afghanistan as a response to 9/11. We went into Afghanistan because of bin Laden, even though all the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. And even though bin Laden was in more places than Afghanistan. But putting that aside, we go into Afghanistan, right? You can't find bin Laden, which was the expressed reason we voted for war in Afghanistan. So, ultimately, you have, hold on. Text. You have a U.S. military that doesn't even understand Afghanistan. In the reports, written in dense bureaucratic prose and focused on an alphabet soup of government officials, left out the harshest and most frank criticisms from the interviews. Quote, we found the stabilization strategy and the programs used to achieve it were not properly tailored to the Afghan context, and successes in stabilizing Afghan districts rarely lasted longer than the physical presence of coalition troops and civilians, read the introduction to one report. You also have the U.S. policy. U.S. officials tried to create, from scratch, a democratic government in Kabul, modeled after their own Washington. It was a foreign concept to the Afghans who were accustomed to tribalism, monarchism, communism, and Islamic law. Quote, our policy was to create a strong central government, which was idiotic because Afghanistan does not have a history of a strong central government, an unidentified State Department official said. The time frame for creating a strong central government is 100 years. This would essentially be like me going to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in North Dakota, which I have very fond memories of, and trying to hunt buffalo. I have no idea how to hunt. I have no idea what the conditions of hunting in Standing Rock Sioux are. I have no idea anything about buffalo. And it ain't my place to go hunt buffalo in the sovereign territory of the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. I don't know if that analogy makes sense to you, but that's the first thing that came to mind. Why in God's name? Besides the most horrific part, 2,300 Americans dead, not to mention countless more Afghans dead, not to mention the Afghan veterans in America that have committed suicide, not to mention the people with PTSD, the family members who have suffered for this colossal waste. And I want to, this might seem like a bit of a strange pivot. I'd like to bring our friend Hillary Clinton into this because I think it's important. This was Hillary Clinton on Howard Stern last week when she was ranting and raving about Bernie Sanders. Here we go.
Bernie Sanders, and this was a perception I had. You would say a policy when you were running against him for the nomination.
Right.
And the next day you go, yeah, well, free college for everyone.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you run for a fifth grade class.
Right.
I'll give you free everything.
Chocolate milk for
everyone. And more recess.
More
pizza. And then it makes it look like you're a stick in the mud.
I know. And then when you say, well, wait a minute, where's the money going to come from? Then what about, are you against free college? I know.
So, apparently, Hillary Clinton, Howard Stern, in that interview, she also, lambasted Bernie Sanders. But apparently, where's the money going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? Where do we get this money for free public college? It's not only Hillary. Let's look at our friend Joe Biden here.
I think we should be in a position of taking a look at what costs are. My plan for health care costs a lot of money. It costs $740 billion. It doesn't cost $30 trillion. $3.4 trillion a year, it turns out, is twice what the entire federal budget is. That's before it exists now, without interest on the debt. How are we going to pay for it? I want to hear tonight how that's happened. So as far, my distinguished friend, the senator on my left, has not indicated how she pays for it. And the senator has, in fact, come forward and said how he's going to pay for it, but it gets him about halfway there. There's a lot of other things that need to be done.
Sorry about that. Well, we make $1 trillion we spent on this ridiculous, wasteful, absurd, immoral war in Afghanistan. $1 trillion we spent. All the while, government officials in the Pentagon, the CIA, are altering documents, are altering facts, are lying to us. Why? To keep us there. Why are they keeping us there? Who the hell knows? It's all part of the military-industrial complex to grease the skids of Raytheon. Well, Hillary, Joe, and the rest of the neoliberal order, I could tell you what we could use that. I don't know. I think I know how to pay for free college. Here you go. War in Afghanistan, according to these estimates, $978 billion. Gives us 12 years of free public college. $80 billion a year is Bernie Sanders' plan. 12 years of free public college we could have had with what we've spent in Afghanistan. How about 7 years of universal pre-K? Studies show costs about $140 billion a year. Could have 2 years of universal basic income, $12,000 a year to every person in this country. 2 years of a universal basic income experiment. How about replacing lead service lines so that our water isn't poisoned like in Flint and elsewhere? Well, I mean, we could have done that, I guess, in the first half year of the Afghanistan war. I mean, I didn't have all day to go through the list, but I could find you even more examples of how we could pay for these things. how the money is already there. And by the way, I don't even believe in this how do you pay for things argument. I don't subscribe to this how do you pay for it argument. I believe in modern monetary theory, which slowly more people are getting in tune to. But I'm just saying these are all under the current confines of what's the pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Well, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, why is it that we only ask how you're going to pay for it when it's for the moral things like healthcare and education? But we don't ask, how are we paying for, or why are we paying for this absurd war in Afghanistan? This lie in Afghanistan. You wonder why I say, and Ben Norton says, and Max Blumenthal says, and Glenn Greenwald says, and Abby Martin, and Rania Khalek, and Jimmy Dore, and Kyle Kalinske, and keep going. Well, no, I don't believe what the government says, that Russia is, hacking our brains, and Russia swung the election, and Russia did this, and Russia's doing this. No, I don't believe it until they give me evidence. Because the U.S. government lied about Vietnam. The U.S. government lied about Iraq. And now we know the U.S. government has been lying about Afghanistan pretty much from the jump. You could make an argument that it was valid for us to go into Afghanistan after 9/11. I would have preferred a little inner self-reflection. Just why the hell do these people want to kill us? But, George Bush, Rudy Giuliani swung their genitals out. We got to be the tough guys. We got to go, get revenge for what bin Laden did. You could make an argument it was justified to go in Afghanistan. It was not justified to stay in Afghanistan. And clearly, the U.S. military had no idea who the enemy was. If you read further into this Washington Post report, soldiers would ask, where are the bad guys? They would be given a map and say, where are the bad guys? And the generals would say, we can't really tell you that. It's the same thing in Syria. Obama and all these people were giving weapons to the rebels. Half the time they were giving weapons inadvertently to Al-Qaeda and Iraq. Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And by the way, we got 340 people watching, 200 likes. We need 140 more of you to press that like button. Press the like button. Very, very helpful. And by the way, apologies for the buffering. Fortunately, I have somebody coming tomorrow who's going to help me set up my little quasi-studio in the short term. I'm going to be at my parents' house for a couple weeks. So I have somebody coming tomorrow to help me hook up my studio, which will include a Ethernet plugin. So bear with me today. I know we're having a little delays. So what's really sickening to me, in a normal environment, in a normal country, in a normal system, this story to me is just as big as the Pentagon Papers. It's way bigger than this impeachment hearing. You're talking about literally being in the longest war in American history based on lie after lie after lie. You're talking about Republican presidents lying. You're talking about Democratic presidents lying. You're talking about current candidates lying. What did Joe Biden know about this lie? The vice president gets the same intel that President Obama got. You don't think Joe Biden knew that this was a lost war? I could have missed it. I haven't seen Bernie Sanders issue a statement on this. I haven't seen Tulsi Gabbard issue a statement on this. If they did and I missed it, let me know. I really encourage you, listen, we're all busy. A lot of us have kids. You're running around, working 2 to 3 jobs. Try to read as much as you can of this story. It is truly, truly unbelievable. and sickening. It took me quite a while in between other things I was doing to read the full thing, but it literally paints a picture of essentially a wild goose hunt in Afghanistan that cost us $1 trillion. Meanwhile, during this wild goose chase, you have people like CNN asking how you're going to pay for it. How are you going to pay for healthcare? How are you going to pay for free college? How are you going to pay for a Green New Deal?
First of all, the thing that we need to realize is people talk about the sticker shock of Medicare for all. They do not talk about the sticker shock of the cost of our existing system. You know, in a Koch brothers funded study, if any study is going to try to be a little bit slanted, it would be one funded by the Koch brothers. It shows that Medicare for all is actually much cheaper than the current system that we pay right now. And let's not forget that the reason that the Supreme Court upheld the Affordable Care Act is because they ruled that each of these monthly payments that everyday Americans make is a tax. And so while it may not seem like we pay that tax on April 15th, we pay it every single month, or we do pay a tax season if we don't buy, these plans off of the exchange. So we're paying for this system. We Americans have the sticker shock of healthcare as it is. And what we're also not talking about is why aren't we incorporating the cost of all the funeral expenses of those who die because they can't afford access to healthcare? That is part of the cost of our system. Why don't we talk about the cost of reduced productivity because of people who need to go on disability, because of people who are not able to participate in our economy, because they're having issues like diabetes or they don't have access to the healthcare that they need. I think at the end of the day, we see that this is not a pipe dream. Every other developed nation in the world does this. Why can't America? And that is the question that we need to ask. We have done these things before. We write unlimited blank checks for war. We just wrote a $2 trillion check for that tax cut, the GOP tax cut, and nobody asked those folks how are they going to pay for it. So my question is, why is it that our pockets are only empty when it comes to education and health care for our kids? Why are our pockets only empty when we talk about 100% renewable energy that is going to save this planet and allow our children to thrive? We only have empty pockets when it comes to the morally right things to do. But when it comes to tax cuts for billionaires and when it comes to unlimited war, we seem to be able to invent that money very easily. And to me, it belies a lack of moral priorities that people have right now, especially the Republican Party.
Damn. Ocasio-Cortez. Chris Cuomo looks like he just saw a ghost. And by the way, folks, this is a super chat. Keep us going. We got to prove to YouTube we're commercially viable. We appreciate any amount in the super chat. And we got 370 people watching. 260 of you have pressed that like button. So we need over 100 more to press that like button. And bear with me for a second. I'm just going to play a video for you while I try to fix something.
Brand new reaction coming in from Rudy Giuliani. And right now, President Trump's former top advisor on Russia.
More breaking news tonight on Rudy Giuliani.
Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani is under criminal investigation.
President Trump is not going to cooperate.
The latest on impeachment.
Impeachment investigation.
President Trump. President Trump. President Trump.
President Trump.
President Trump.
President Trump's
educational issues with the children that have been poisoned. We're at one of the encampments that homeless people are living at.
It's really discouraging to notice these similarities where you have the administration going, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your water, but here, take these filters.
Are you on Social Security?
I am, but I work a full-time business.
I know, but you're aware Social Security is a socialist program.
Well, that's beside the point.
So, really, what you have here, in a nutshell, is essentially the explanation. And I think, although I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter, if you look at a Tulsi Gabbard, this is literally the entire, or the main message of her campaign, of her political career. You can't do the things that need to be done domestically. You can't do the things that need to be done morally if you are spending all of your money gallivanting around the world, destroying other countries, without any idea what you are doing. Again, I don't believe necessarily in this, all in the whole, how do you pay for it, this kind of stuff. But what I do believe, we need to start as Americans refusing to just accept even those we elect to represent us, just writing blank checks for these wars. We need to be in the streets before we go to war with Iran or North Korea. Or, spend money to overthrow Nicaragua is now the new thing. Thank you for the super chat. 10 euros. Bauke. Good work. Like you're in the field interviews. Thank you. Thank you. Torpor111, 1999 in the super chat. Very much appreciate it. Keep it coming if you can. And I just feel terrible for the families, both in America and Afghanistan, who have lost people for no reason at all. No reason at all. With that, I pivot to another waste. And that would be Pete Buttigieg. That would be Pete Buttigieg. So in between all of this madness going on, the Afghanistan story that came out, the impeachment hearings are going on. You have the Inspector General came out today with a report basically blasting the FBI, saying that their original FISA warrant for Carter Page was severely flawed. Said it wasn't politically biased, but basically said it depended on the now disgraced Steele dossier that the Hillary Clinton's campaign was trying to enlist the Steele dossier against Trump. During all this, Pete Buttigieg, good strategy if you're a slimy politician, wanted to get his news out so nobody would know and nobody would pay, and there wouldn't be a lot of attention on it, and it would kind of get lost in all this other news. So he came out saying, I will allow press in my high dollar, lavish caviar and champagne fundraisers. So he's now going to let the press in. I am the press. They still haven't told us where the 3 bougie mega fundraisers he's having in Manhattan are this week. He's having big fundraisers in Manhattan this week, starting tomorrow, another one Wednesday, I believe another one Thursday. No idea where it is. Now, I'm not suggesting people go and do anything violent at a private residence, of course not. But if he wants to go have, $2,800 ticket fundraisers with nice little, tapas meals, champagne and caviar, with a who's who of Wall Street bankers, big pharma, big real estate, big oil, Silicon Valley, I think people have a right to protest outside, and they should be able to know where it is. But we don't know. So Pete came out today saying he will let press in. We'll see about that. We'll see which press he allows in. He also, about an hour later, McKinsey, the vulture capitalist company that he consulted for, came out saying that they will release him, according to them. They will release him from his non-disclosure agreement as far as allowing him to share who his clients were, who he consulted for. I don't know if they are allowing him to share details of his consulting, what he did, what he consulted them on. I don't know if they're allowing that because, you don't want to give away the goods. You don't want to really show how sleazy this whole thing is, how McKinsey consults brutal dictators around the world, how McKinsey consults toxic polluters around the country and world. They don't want the full details out, so they're just going to let him list the companies that he consulted for, which he could spin any which way he wants. He could spin any which way he wants what he did for those consultants. Those companies. So, As far as transparency, let's say we got like 40 to 50% transparency from the good mayor today. Press are going to be allowed in. I'm assuming now the press are going to be allowed in, he's probably going to possibly change the way he talks at these fundraisers. Who the heck knows what he's been saying up until now? I have no idea what he's been saying at these fundraisers. But I assume he's not going to be stupid enough. Thank you for the super chat. Matthew Rains, 1999 in the super chat. Keep it coming. I assume he's not going to be stupid enough to basically be bending over and asking for favors. I don't mean in a gross way. I mean, as all politicians do. If the press are there, I assume he's going to talk about this new generation we need. What he will privately discuss one-on-one with these lavish hedge fund people and Wall Street traders and big pharma executives, who knows what he's going to discuss privately. But Sludge came out with a really good piece. Hopefully you guys check it out at sludge.com. And Pete Buttigieg has not released who's raising money for him, and Sludge got the name. Who are the lobbyists and corporate execs collecting checks for Pete Buttigieg? Mayor Pete's presidential campaign stopped disclosing the names of its campaign donation bundlers in November, as the Indiana mayor faced increased scrutiny after surging in some early swing state polls. The campaign is also continuing to block press from his fundraising events. This was written before the announcement that he would let press in. A review of Buttigieg's known bundlers show why his campaign is reluctant to disclose the names going forward. Some are registered lobbyists, while others are shadow federal lobbyists with executive titles like government relations and heavy lobbying firms. The three high-profile attorneys representing controversial clients bundled checks for Buttigieg, but had their individual donations returned after their support was revealed. Oh, so they're allowed to raise millions of dollars for Buttigieg, but we can't take their money directly. What a transparent, ethical guy. The Buttigieg campaign initially committed in April to releasing the names of its bundlers, joining only then-candidate Kamala Harris in pledging to do so. But as of October, it had not updated its bundler list. Buttigieg rivals Warren and Sanders said they do not have big money bundlers to disclose, according to Open Secrets. Former Vice President Biden's campaign did not respond, shockingly, about disclosing its bundlers. Biden's campaign recently reversed itself to allow a super PAC, led by lobbyists and executives, to raise and spend unlimited sums of money. So let's take a look. Here are some of the bundlers and fundraiser hosts behind Buttigieg's big dollars. Steve Elmendorf, a Democratic Party veteran. Elmendorf is a federal lobbyist who went through the revolving door in 2005 after working as chief of staff to former House Minority Leader Dick Gephardt. Elmendorf's name appears on a list of bundlers released by the campaign in April. His name was removed from an online fundraiser invitation after Buttigieg reversed his earlier position and decided to ban contributions from lobbyists. 10 of his Democratic rivals, including Warren and Biden, have pledged not to accept lobbyist contributions. Elmendorf lobbied for multiple members of the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future, a healthcare industry-funded nonprofit. It's really a healthcare front group who meant to defeat Medicare for All and Medicare public option plans. As of the third quarter, Elmendorf was also registered to lobby for the Federation of American Hospitals, oil company BP America, Wall Street giant Goldman Sachs, Verizon, Facebook, and a dozen more. Woo! Boy, talk about a progressive hero. Hamilton James, the executive vice chairman of Blackstone, the world's largest private equity firm, hosted a Buttigieg fundraiser at his home on June 13th, drawing finance industry support. James is a longtime Democratic donor who the New York Times described in 2016 as one of the leading Wall Street contenders for an economic policy post in a future Hillary Clinton administration. In 2017, when James was president of Blackstone, the firm announced a $40 billion U.S. infrastructure fund, which half of the cash coming from the government of Saudi Arabia. Just wonderful. Blackstone and other private equity firms are significant investors in the fossil fuel industry, and while large donations from their executives don't technically violate the no fossil fuel pledge, Buttigieg and other candidates, their firms are active drivers. And by the way, Blackstone has been making money off of the burning of the Amazon forest in Brazil. I don't know. This really does sound like a new generation to me. What about you? This really does sound like a new generation. A new generation of the old generation. Just with a new cute face. It's truly unbelievable. The amount of hoodwinking Pete Buttigieg has been able to do, enabled by a totally pliant corporate media, to prop this guy up. He is literally Joe Biden, 40 years younger, and more articulate, I would say. That's who he is. This is Joe Biden, 35, 40 years younger. This is Hillary Clinton, different body parts. He is a corporate servant. He has no policies to help working people. He, as mayor of South Bend, he's basically been running to get out of South Bend for the last 3 years. First as DNC chair, and now as president. Yeah, the live stream buffering, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Wasn't buffering yesterday. Maybe I said something that YouTube does not like. That's why you got to support us in the super chat. But fortunately, I have somebody coming tomorrow to help me with more of a studio setup here at my parents'. So I won't be live tomorrow, as that person's going to be helping me during my live stream tomorrow. But I hope to be up and running on an Ethernet connection Wednesday at the earliest. So stay tuned for that. So this is why, and I'll put this link in the super chat if you want to read this. This is why it is so important, this next debate. Because, strangely, and I really don't get it, as far as Bernie, as far as Warren, as far as Tulsi, strangely, really nobody went after him in the last debate. Nobody went after him in the last debate. I don't know why. There was plenty of opportunity to go after him, but people chose not to. So now, with the debate about a week and a half away, it's time for people to drop these political bombs on Pete's head. He is a slimy little fucker. Thus far, he's been able to get around attacks. But I don't think he's going to get around all this. He's going to have a very, very hard time explaining how he's anything different than what we've already seen for basically 2 decades. He's going to have a hard time. And I think Bernie's going to go after him. I think Warren's going to go after him. I think Tulsi's going to go after him. And I think even the other moderates, Booker, Klobuchar, I think it's going to be Buttigieg piñata time. And I would pay to see that. And by the way, just a correction, I was looking at Bernie's campaign account. He actually did comment on the Afghanistan story on his senator Twitter. He tweeted, "As a young person, I protested the Vietnam War. Americans were lied to and sent to die. After 18 years of lies and $1 trillion of war in Afghanistan, we are in the same place. We must end this war and build a society that stops this from happening again." So that was Bernie on the Afghanistan war and the story that came out today. I looked at Tulsi's Twitter and Facebook. I didn't see anything yet. And I hope, somebody just said, well, this channel will be purged at midnight. I very much hope that's not the case. I very much hope that all this buffering is not an appetizer to us being purged. But that's why we keep asking you, follow us at Twitch, twitch.tv/statuscoup. That's twitch.tv/statuscoup. We really, really hope there will be no change when the clock strikes midnight. We hope that we, like a lot of our other independent media friends, are not arbitrarily censored by being purged. It would obviously be a major issue for us as we've built up 66,000 subscribers. I don't have any reason to think we're going to be, but I also don't have a guarantee that we won't be, based on everything we've seen from YouTube over the last 2 to 3 years. So fingers crossed we're not, but definitely today, follow us at twitch.tv/statuscoup. It's the only way we could grow elsewhere in the event that YouTube tries something. So that's it for today, folks. I'm going to end a little bit early because the buffering is thick. I'm going to try to see what's going on my computer. Maybe that is playing a part in the buffering. And also, like I said, tomorrow I will most likely not be live, as I do have a camera person coming and a studio person coming to help me set up a bit of a studio setup here on Long Island. I'm going to be here on Long Island. I'm going to be bouncing around between Long Island and elsewhere for the next few weeks, saving some money before I move in with my lady. But we're going to set up the green screen and the Ethernet connection, so I have a bit more of a studio and a better connection to go live for you guys. So I probably won't be live tomorrow, but I'll be back at it Wednesday, and we will be posting videos here regardless. If you missed it, we posted this morning my interview with Max Blumenthal. We split it up into 2 parts. Part 1 was about his obscene and absurd arrest, and thankfully the charges being dropped. And part 2 is about the growing evidence that is forming that the U.S. government's it claims that the Syrian government gassed more people and did a gas attack in Doma last April is propaganda and possibly even a false flag. So definitely check out those interviews. Thank you for your support. Real quick, we're really, if you're already a member, thank you. If you're not a member, consider signing up. Statuscoup.com/join. We'll also have some videos probably tomorrow from Marcus's reporting at 2 Joe Biden events yesterday. So we're going to have Marcus's reporting. And like I said, as long as we could get this camera person up to speed, definitely plan on being out in the field in the next week or 2 myself. So we need you to fund this in the field reporting. And if I could find out where Mayor Pete's fundraisers are, I might just have to show up myself. Statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. It's how we grow. It's how we stay afloat. And we really appreciate your support as always. Thank you for watching. Peace out.